The silence that followed his answer was deafening. Sarah stood frozen, her coffee cup suspended halfway to her lips, as the weight of Mike's words settled between them. What had begun as casual office banter had suddenly exposed a truth so raw, so heartbreaking, that she couldn't find her voice. And in that moment, she understood why her most dedicated employee always declined every setup, every blind date, every chance at happiness she'd tried to offer him. If you're moved by stories of sacrifice, resilience, and the quiet heroism of everyday people, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Mike Reynolds hadn't planned on having this conversation with his boss today. At 38, he'd become adept at deflecting questions about his personal life with a smile and a quick change of subject. The company holiday party was approaching, and Sarah had once again suggested he bring a date. "Why won't you date, Mike?" she'd asked with genuine curiosity. "You're smart, successful, not terrible to look at," she'd joked. "What's holding you back?" He hadn't meant to tell her everything. But something about her sincere concern broke through the walls he'd carefully constructed around his heart. Mike had been a rising star at his architectural firm 7 years ago. He and his wife Elena had just welcomed their daughter Lily into the world, and despite the sleepless nights and adjustment to parenthood, they'd been deliriously happy. Elena was brilliant, a pediatric surgeon with a laugh that could light up a room. They'd met in college, married young, and built their dreams together brick by brick. Then came the headaches. Elena dismissed them as stress, lack of sleep, the normal exhaustion of a new mother returning to a demanding career. By the time they got the diagnosis, glioblastoma, an aggressive brain tumor, it was already too late. 6 months later, Mike found himself a widower with a 1-year-old daughter who would never remember her mother's face. "I don't date," Mike told Sarah quietly, "because I'm already in a relationship with grief. And because every minute not spent at work belongs to Lily." The office around them buzzed with activity, but in the break room, time seemed suspended as Mike described the reality of his life. The morning rush to get Lily ready for school. The carefully coordinated schedule with Mrs. Patel next door who watched Lily after school until he could get home. The science projects and dance recitals and nightmares and fevers. The constant fear that he wasn't enough, couldn't be enough, to fill the void left by Elena's absence. "I keep her memory alive for Lily," Mike explained. "I tell her stories about her mom every night. How Elena loved strawberry ice cream but was allergic to strawberries, so she'd take Benadryl just to enjoy it sometimes. How she could name every bone in the human body but couldn't remember where she parked her car. How she wanted to learn to play the cello after she turned 40. Sarah listened, her heart breaking for the man who had carried this burden so quietly, so competently, that none of them had ever suspected the depth of his sacrifice. "But that's not why I don't date," Mike continued, his voice steady but soft. "I don't date because the last time I tried, 3 years ago, Lily stopped sleeping. She developed separation anxiety so severe that her teacher called me concerned about regression. She was terrified I would disappear too." Mike described how he'd ended things with the woman, a kind kindergarten teacher named Rachel who had understood completely. "Lily needs stability right now," Rachel had told him. "She needs to know you're not going anywhere. Maybe someday, when she's older." But as the years passed, Mike had settled into a routine that left no room for his own needs. He worked while Lily was at school, took on freelance projects he could do from home after she went to bed, and poured every ounce of his energy into being both mother and father to a child who had already experienced more loss than many adults. "The thing is," Mike said, meeting Sarah's eyes for the first time since he began his story, "I'm not unhappy. Lily is extraordinary. She has Elena's eyes and her determination. She's 7 now and already talking about becoming a doctor like her mom. She's the center of my universe." Sarah found her voice at last. "But what about you, Mike? Don't you deserve companionship too?" Mike's smile was gentle but resolute. "Maybe someday. But right now, this is the choice I've made. Lily only gets one childhood. I only get one chance to raise her right. Romance can wait. As their conversation ended and Mike returned to his desk, Sarah watched him with new eyes. The man she'd thought needed a gentle push toward dating was actually standing firmly in a choice made from the deepest kind of love. That evening, as Sarah drove home to her own family, she found herself reflecting on Mike's story. She'd always considered herself perceptive, prided herself on understanding her employees, but she'd completely misread Mike's situation. What she had seen as hesitation or perhaps lingering grief was actually a conscious, daily choice to prioritize his daughter's emotional well-being above his own desires. Meanwhile, across town, Mike was helping Lily with her homework. "Dad," she asked suddenly, "do you ever get lonely?" The question caught him off guard. At 7, Lily was becoming more perceptive, more aware of the differences between their family and others. "Sometimes," he answered honestly. "But then I look at you, and I'm not lonely anymore." Lily seemed to consider this, her small face serious. "Mrs. Wilson at school got married again. She was a widow like you." Mike felt his heart constrict. "Did she?" "Yeah. She said her first husband would be happy she found love again." Lily twirled her pencil. "Do you think Mom would want you to be alone forever?" The question hung in the air between them, innocent yet profound. Mike had asked himself the same thing countless times. Elena had been vibrant, full of life and love. She would have hated the thought of him closing himself off from happiness. "No, sweetheart," he said finally. "Mom would want both of us to be happy." "Then why don't you date anyone?" The directness of childhood, cutting straight to the heart of things. Mike chose his words carefully. "Because right now, being your dad is what makes me happy. And I wasn't sure if you were ready for me to date someone." Lily's eyes, so like Elena's, studied him intently. "I think I might be ready. Not right now, but maybe soon." Something shifted in Mike's chest, not a dramatic change, but a slight loosening of the bands that had constrained his heart for so long. He pulled Lily into a hug, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, marveling at how this small person could be so wise. "Maybe soon," he agreed. The next day at work, Sarah approached his desk cautiously. "Mike, about yesterday, I want to apologize for prying." Mike shook his head. "No need. Actually, I should thank you. Your question led to an important conversation with Lily last night." As he recounted their talk, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope for her friend. "So there might be a someday, after all?" "Maybe," Mike acknowledged. "But I'm not rushing anything. When and if the time comes, it will have to be someone who understands that Lily and I are a package deal. Someone who respects Elena's memory and doesn't try to replace her." Sarah nodded. "The right person will understand that." Over the following months, a subtle change came over Mike. He didn't suddenly start dating, but he began accepting occasional invitations to team dinners, bringing Lily to the company picnic, opening up more about his life to his colleagues. It was as though sharing his story had relieved some of the pressure he'd been carrying alone. Lily, too, was changing. With the resilience of childhood, she began asking more questions about her mother, but also about the future. "If you did get married again someday," she asked one evening, "would I get to be the flower girl?" Mike laughed, surprised by her practical approach. "Absolutely. No one else would do." A year after that fateful conversation with Sarah, Mike found himself at a parent-teacher conference, sitting next to a woman named Diana whose son was in Lily's class. They'd seen each other at school events but never really talked. Diana was a graphic designer and a widow herself, raising her son alone after losing her husband to a heart attack 4 years earlier. Their conversation was easy, comfortable in a way Mike hadn't experienced in years. When Diana suggested they get coffee sometime to discuss an upcoming school fundraiser, Mike hesitated only briefly before agreeing. That night, he sat on the edge of Lily's bed during their nightly ritual of sharing memories of Elena. Mom would have loved your science project, he told her. Remember how I told you she wanted to be an astronaut before she decided to become a doctor? She would have helped you make the solar system model even better than mine. Lily nodded, clutching the photo of Elena she kept beside her bed. Dad? I met Mrs. Chen's son today. His dad died when he was a baby, like Mom died when I was little. But now he has a stepdad who takes him fishing and helps with his math homework. Mike waited, sensing there was more. I was thinking, Lily continued, that maybe it would be okay if you wanted to have coffee with Ms. Diana from my class. I saw you talking to her after the conference. Mike stared at his daughter, astonished. How did you know about that? Lily rolled her eyes in a gesture so reminiscent of Elena that it made his heart ache. Dad, I'm 8 now. I notice things. And you'd be okay with that? With me having coffee with Ms. Diana? Lily considered this seriously. I think Mom would want you to have a friend. And Ms. Diana is nice. She always has the best snacks at soccer practice. Mike laughed, amazed at how the mind of a child could reduce complex emotional situations to the quality of snacks provided. Well, that's a strong recommendation. Just don't forget about our memories, Lily added, suddenly serious again. We still have to talk about Mom. Every day, Mike promised. No matter what happens, we'll always remember Mom. When Mike met Diana for coffee that weekend, with Lily's explicit approval, he found himself telling her about the conversation with his boss that had started this gradual opening of his heart. Diana understood in a way only another person who had walked through grief could. It's not about replacing the people we lost, she said quietly. It's about making room for new joy while honoring what came before. 6 months later, Mike found himself back in the break room with Sarah, who had watched this slow transformation with quiet support. Lily asked if Diana could come to the company holiday party with us this year. Mike told her, a mixture of nervousness and hope in his voice. She says it's time. Sarah smiled, remembering the question that had started it all. Why won't you date? She had asked, never expecting the answer would break her heart and then, gradually, help it heal. We'd love to have both of them there, she said simply. That evening, as Mike helped Lily hang a new family photo on the wall, one that included Diana and her son alongside their own smaller family unit, he reflected on the journey of the past 18 months. The photo of Elena still held the place of honor on their mantle, her smile forever frozen in time. But beside it now stood evidence of a family expanding, healing, growing in new directions while keeping its roots intact. Do you think Mom would like Diana? Lily asked, studying the arrangement of photos. Mike considered this question with the seriousness it deserved. I think she would. Diana is kind and funny and smart, just like Mom was. And she makes us both happy. Lily nodded, satisfied. That's what I think too. As they stood together looking at the visual representation of their past and present, Mike realized that the answer he'd given Sarah that day in the break room was still true, but incomplete. He didn't date because his daughter came first, but loving Lily didn't have to mean closing his heart to other possibilities. The capacity for love wasn't finite, it could expand to include new people while never diminishing what came before. The journey from grief to healing wasn't linear. There were still days when the absence of Elena felt like a physical ache, when Mike would find himself reaching for the phone to tell her something about Lily before remembering she wasn't there to answer. Diana understood those moments, having her own ghosts, her own memories. But there were also new joys, blended family game nights, holiday traditions that honored the past while creating space for the present, the sound of children's laughter filling a home that had once been too quiet. When Mike finally told Diana the full story of that conversation with Sarah, the question that had broken open something inside him, Diana squeezed his hand. Sometimes the questions that hurt the most to answer are the ones we most need to hear. 3 years after that fateful conversation in the break room, Mike stood in Sarah's office, an invitation in his hand. Lily insisted you get the first one, he explained, handing her the embossed card. She says if it weren't for your nosy question, we might never have gotten here. Sarah laughed as she read the wedding invitation, remembering the man who had once told her he was in a relationship with grief. That relationship hadn't ended. Grief would always be part of Mike's life, but it had transformed into something that could coexist with joy. I'd be honored, she said, blinking back unexpected tears. And for the record, I've never been so happy to be proven wrong. When I asked why you wouldn't date, I thought the answer was simple. I never expected it to be a story about the kind of love that reshapes itself but never truly ends. Mike nodded, understanding completely. Elena will always be Lily's mother. Nothing changes that. But Diana has helped us both see that love isn't a limited resource. There's room in our hearts for what was, what is, and what might be. As he left her office, Sarah watched him go, thinking about how a single question asked in casual curiosity had revealed a depth of love and sacrifice she hadn't known existed. Mike's journey had taught her, had taught all of them, that sometimes the most profound acts of love aren't grand gestures but quiet, daily choices made when no one is watching. And sometimes, healing doesn't mean moving on from grief, but making room for it to sit alongside new joy, honoring what was lost while embracing what might still be found. The wedding was small, held in the botanical garden where Mike and Elena had once spent Sunday afternoons. Lily, now 11, served as both flower girl and ring bearer, proudly walking down the aisle in a dress she had chosen herself. Diana's son Jackson, 12 and suddenly serious about his role in the ceremony, stood tall beside Mike as his best man. In the front row sat Sarah, watching as the man who had once broken her heart with his answer found a new chapter that honored the old. The vows Mike and Diana exchanged acknowledged their past loves explicitly, not as shadows to be hidden but as integral parts of the people they had become. I promise to cherish the memories you bring with you, Diana said, her voice steady and clear, and to help create new ones worthy of standing alongside them. Mike's voice broke slightly as he responded, I promise to love with a heart that has known loss and chooses joy anyway, a stronger, more grateful heart because of that journey. At the reception afterward, Lily approached Sarah with the solemn dignity of a child entrusted with an important message. Dad said to tell you that your question changed everything, she reported. He said sometimes the hardest answers lead to the best beginnings. Sarah smiled at this piece of wisdom, delivered in a child's voice but carrying the weight of hard-won adult understanding. Your dad is a very wise man. Lily nodded seriously. He is. And he's happy now. We all are. She glanced over to where Mike and Diana were dancing, their faces alight with a joy that didn't erase the past but built upon it. But we still talk about my mom every day. Diana helps me remember things Dad forgets sometimes. This, perhaps, was the most beautiful part of the story that had begun with a heartbreaking answer in a company break room. The new love hadn't replaced or diminished the old, but had created space for memory to live alongside hope, for grief to coexist with joy. As the evening drew to a close, Mike found a moment alone with Sarah. Thank you, he said simply. For what? She asked. All I did was ask an insensitive question. Mike shook his head. You asked the right question at the right time. You made me articulate something I'd never put into words before. And once I said it out loud, that I was choosing Lily's stability over my own happiness, I realized those things didn't have to be mutually exclusive. That maybe the best gift I could give Lily was showing her how to live fully, even after loss. Sarah thought about how far they'd all come from that moment when his answer had broken her heart. I'm so glad you found your way here, she said. Not alone, Mike corrected gently. None of us makes this journey alone. As he rejoined his new family on the dance floor, his daughter twirling in her flower girl dress, his stepson awkwardly but enthusiastically attempting to dance, his new wife laughing with the pure joy of the moment, Mike felt Elena's presence not as